Mets president David Stearns recently described third base as a carousel for the Mets this season. The question is, where will that carousel eventually land?
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. I've been covering the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season. This is the only podcast that covers the Mets 7 days a week throughout the regular season. If you want to find some of my written work, you can do so over at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Now, from 2005 through 2016, there was one constant with the New York Mets. On opening day every single year, number 5, David Wright, would be starting over at third base. The longest streak for any player in franchise history, starting opening days at the same position, Wright, 12 years in a row. Since then, since spinal stenosis robbed David Wright of the end of his career, the New York Mets have had that position in complete flux. You look at who has started opening days at third base since David Wright, 2017. His longtime teammate, Jose Reyes, got a start on opening day at third. Todd Frazier did it in 2018. 2019 and 2020, it was Jeff McNeil. I don't remember that, but I guess he did start a couple opening days at third. You had J.D. Davis, 2021, Eduardo Escobar, 2022 and 2023. And then you have the incumbents, Brett Baty in 2024, Mark Vientos in 2025. If you really go through that period of time for the New York Mets, there has never been a clear-cut, oh, he's the guy. You had some stopgaps when you look at a Todd Frazier or Eduardo Escobar. You had some guys that were potentially looked at as, oh, maybe there's some upside here with the J.D. Davis at one point in time. Maybe there was a moment where you thought Wilmer Flores would be the third baseman for the Mets. Who knows? But the first time where we were really sold on a new face of the position, a new cornerstone at third base, it was Brett Baty when he made his debut late in 2022. And then when he grabbed the position in 2023 with a torrid start from spring training through the beginning of the season in AAA, he takes over third base for Eduardo Escobar. The Mets trade Escobar to clear out the runway for Brett Baty to be the guy for now and well into the future, and he failed. 2024, he gets the keys to third base again. He fails. Mark Vientos takes over, looks like a borderline all-star, has an unbelievable run through the season, hits 27 home runs in, 111 games, goes into the playoffs, plays out of his mind. And going into this season over at Just Baseball, we were ranking the top 10 third baseman in the game. Mark Vientos, from all of our panelists, not just myself boosting his numbers, voted him as the 9th best third baseman in baseball. That is how much of an impression Mark Vientos made last year. But here we are. Vientos, at this point, we're looking at him more as a DH than a third baseman. Now, he could change that, and I hope he does. You look at what he's done this year, though. -8 defensive run saves, -7 outs above average. He's been borderline unplayable at third base defensively. And the offensive stats have fallen off. His WRC plus last year, which is weighted runs created plus, measuring hitters on a league average of 100, was 133. So he was 33 points better than your league average hitter. This year, it's dropped off to 94. 6% worse than your league average hitter. His slug has gone from 516 last year to 380. That's not Mark Vientos. Mark Vientos needs to be, wherever he's in the lineup, giving you that power. That's what's been his calling card forever. He has to slug. We haven't seen it this year. Brett Baty, on the other hand, has slugged a little bit, and he has played really great defense, particularly at third base, but also has graded out above average at second. He's been worth 2 outs above average at third, 1 out above average at second, 0 defensive runs saved at second, 2 defensive runs saved at third. So he has graded out, again, above average at third base. You look at his offensive profile, though. Last year, about the same sample size, Brett Baty walked 9.4% of the time. This year, that's dropped off to 5.8%. Now, I don't want Baty to be too passive. I'm happy that he's being a little more aggressive, but he's also striking out more, 27.2% of the time. He's only hitting 219 on the season, 267 on base, 419 slug, a 92 WRC plus. He has been basically the same level of a hitter as Vientos, where right now you say, all right, well, Baty's the answer at third because he's giving you the defense. But he hasn't put it all together offensively. He's hit 8 home runs and he has 24 RBIs in 54 games. That's a third of the season. So if you were to tell me that you extrapolate it out over 162, it's 24 homers, 72 RBIs, and a couple wins above replacement, because right now he's at 0.7. So if you were to times that by 3, call it a 2.1 WAR player, sure, it's a pretty good third baseman, but that's not a well above average starting third baseman because the bat just isn't quite there yet. So with Baty, you have a bat that's not quite there, but has shown some flashes. With Vientos, we expect a certain level out of him offensively, but he hasn't sustained it. It was one great year up to this point. So can he get back to that? And then the question is the same question we had even throughout the playoff run last year. While he did settle it and there was no alternative to stick over at third, you still have to wonder, can he hold his own defensively at the position? And then that brings us to the wild card, Ronny Mauricio. Right now, because you have Brett Baty, who's day-to-day with groin tightness, and Mark Vientos, who's on the IL, this week, it's Ronny Mauricio's position. We've seen him play a lot of third base since he came up. The defense looks good. Not as good as Baty, but he definitely looks better than Vientos right now over there. You see the former chops as a shortstop, definitely has a strong arm. I still don't know if he can get to the level that Baty's gotten to, but I wouldn't count him out with the athlete that he is. If he got more and more exposure at the position, maybe he could turn into a really good defensive third baseman, and there is offensive upside. But if you look at Mauricio's track record as a minor league hitter compared to Baty and Vientos, it leaves something to be desired. So I don't know with any of these guys if they're the answer. I really don't. This week, we'll see how long Baty's out for. If he ends up on the IL, which right now they're saying, or they said on Sunday that they weren't concerned about it. They were going to get him, or they weren't going to even get him an MRI. They were just going to give him treatment. He's had a similar injury before to the other. It was his left groin in the past. Right now it's his right groin. Regardless, they said that they think he's going to be fine just day to day. But if he does end up on the IL, it's completely Mauricio's gig right now. Although I guess you could theoretically see Jared Young steal a start over at third base, but I wouldn't necessarily count on it. If Baty is just day-to-day, well, he'll be back later this week, but this series, it's Mauricio. And then you're waiting on Vientos, who's beginning a rehab assignment today in Syracuse, and he'll get 6 games played there this week, barring the weather. There's a chance we could see him back next week. He could meet the Mets at Citi Field when they're facing the Braves on Monday. Every chance that happens if he looks good in his week of at-bats in Syracuse. If he needs more time, he's got 20 days he can stay on assignment to try to get his swing right. It's really going to depend, I think, on performance, almost more so than health, because he hasn't been out that long, and it seemed like he's been able to build up strength in that hamstring very quickly. So I wouldn't be too concerned about it from an injury perspective, but this is an opportunity for Vientos to get his bat right. Right now, looking at the Mets' options this season, I think their plan is, all right, one of these 3 guys is going to figure it out. My question, though, is which one? Which one do you believe in? Which one is going to be the answer? Defensively, I believe in Baty the most. Offensively, I believe in Vientos the most. The guy that I believe second most offensively and second most defensively is Ronny Mauricio. So I really don't have a clear-cut answer here of who is it going to be. I don't know if Baty's going to hit enough. I don't know if Vientos is going to be able to defend the position or if he's going to hit enough. I think he'll hit. Baty's the bat, or excuse me, Vientos is clearly the bat that I am holding out hope on. But it might be at the DH spot. And then there's Mauricio as the wild card. So are the Mets going to continue to let this carousel spin all year? You have Acuna as well, but I just don't think he's hit enough to be playing third base. And I think long-term, the 2 routes for him, it's either a role similar to what he's playing right now, a super utility guy off the bench. Maybe we could hit a little bit more to grab some more starts, but I think what he's doing right now is sort of the floor of what he can be in the big leagues. And the ceiling is a guy that I think is a Gold Glove second baseman and gives you a lot of value because of how elite he is up the middle with Lindor. I don't think he's your third baseman of the future. Are any of these guys, though, Baty, Mauricio, or Vientos, or is it someone down the line? And for the second half of this season, or once we get past the trade deadline? Are the Mets still letting this carousel spin? Will someone have grabbed a spot, or are they going to look in the minor leagues or externally to fill third base? That's what I want to talk about next. Is this a team that might need to make a trade at the deadline, or is there a prospect that could come up? We'll go through it all in just a minute. Today's episode is brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site that's made for skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. If you're watching on YouTube today, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button to help us get closer to our next goal of 14,000 subscribers. We're getting closer and closer with each passing day. I appreciate all of you who continue to subscribe. Now, if the Mets were to look for a third base upgrade at the deadline, there's one name that jumps out to the top of the list because there's not going to be a lot of bats available, and I'm not sure if this bat will be available. But if the Arizona Diamondbacks continue to stay on the outside looking in on this race, and they are approaching the deadline with no Corbin Burns because he's already out with Tommy John surgery, they're looking at some expiring deals like Josh Naylor, two guys that top their rotation in Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly, and then looking over at third base with Eugenio Suárez. They might decide this is the time to fold for this year, cash in those chips, and reinvest in their roster for 2026 and try to turn another winner around with Ketel Marte and Corbin Carroll amongst all the other good players they have. This is a team that could literally change the deadline if they decide to sell. Very similar to how the Mets moved a ton of pieces in 2023. A team with high expectations comes into the year, just doesn't work out. Now, right now, the Diamondbacks have not been that bad. They're one game over 500. They're 7 games back in the division, only 3 games back in the wild card race. There's every chance that by the time we get to the deadline, they are either buying or standing pat because they like their chances to still make the playoffs. But if they do slide back and they do decide, okay, let's maximize this window or this opportunity to sell, Eugenio Suárez should be a name the Mets are seriously considering as maybe the rental that could impact them the most. This is not a great defender at third base, but he's certainly not Mark Vientos. -1 defensive run saved, -3 outs above average right now. Last year, -3 defensive runs saved, +3 outs above average. He is a veteran at the third base position that is not going to win a Gold Glove for you, is not going to give you elite defense, but he's not going to kill you. He's going to be an average defensive third baseman. He's also, though, one of the most consistent and underrated power threats in the game of baseball. He's had 297 career home runs. Let me actually pull up his year-by-year total on home runs because this has been one of the most prolific hitters in baseball that doesn't get any recognition. He did have one monster season in Cincinnati where he hit 49 home runs. That was in 2019. But to go through the arc of his career since he has been a full-time player, 2016, first year where he was a third baseman all year, 21 home runs. Then it was 26 home runs, then 34, then 49, hit 15 in the shortened season in 2020, 31 in back-to-back years in 21 and 22, with 2022 being 31 home runs hit in Seattle. Not easy to do. 22 home runs in 2023, again playing in Seattle. Then 30 home runs last year for the Diamondbacks. And right now, he is sitting at 21 home runs through 71 games. I don't know what that pace is, but well over a 40 home run pace. Let's see, 21 divided by 71. We'll multiply that by 162. 48 home run pace. You'd say, oh, he can't do that. Well, he hit 49. Granted, playing Great American Small Park in a juice ball season in 2019, but still. This is a legit power threat. 57 RBIs on the year. If we even look, I mean, now I'm going to continue to sell myself on this even more. Let's look at since 2020, last 5 seasons, including this year. Where do you think he ranks among all hitters in home runs? He's 12th, 135. RBIs, 420 ranks him 11th. So power production, he has been fringe top 10 in all of baseball. Just consistent. And he's graded out above average at offense and defense over that time. He's just a really good all-around player. At the third base position, let's look at this one. Let's see where his WAR ranks. I bet you it's top 10. Ninth since 2021. Right next to Yandy Diaz and right above Max Muncy. So if the Mets can get a Eugenio Suárez at the deadline, I'm all in on that. And you'd make that move because the carousel kept spinning. You didn't know what to do with it. And you'd probably be optioning Baty and potentially optioning Mauricio. Or maybe Baty is just your utility guy off the bench. And I don't know what happens to Vientos in that circumstance. I really don't. But you have a chance to win a World Series this year, and you plug Suárez into third base. That makes your team better. Now, trading for that level of a rental when he might be, honestly, like the top power pat available at the deadline, just based on who's going to be out there. I don't think another Rafael Devers is going to pop up. So I don't know what's going to cost to get him. I mean, you can make the rental trade that puts you over the top where you can look for a reliever out of that Diamondbacks bullpen. You could try to pluck a Zach Gallen and get Suárez and give up a ton. And if you don't win the World Series this year, you might really regret it. I don't know if David Stearns is going to make that level of a trade. Who knows? We still don't know how he's going to operate as a big market GM with the opportunity to win in a really good farm system. I think he's going to be more aggressive than fans believe, because I think I wouldn't say fans. There's a loud minority of Mets fans that is just going to hate whoever's the GM that believes that David Stearns is a small market GM, and that should define him. The fact that he won in a small market for so long should become a negative thing when he gets to a big market, because he's always going to think that way. Yet he signed off on a $765 million contract this offseason. But regardless, I think he'll be aggressive. I don't know if he's going to view rentals, though, as the way to be aggressive. We already talked about it last week. A Jarren Duran trade. That's a level of aggression that allows you to win this year and gives you a center fielder for the next, 3 years or 4 years beyond this year. Now, Rafael Devers getting traded, though, as I talked about in yesterday's show, might take Duran off the table because they were trying to solve a logjam with Roman Anthony, the top prospect in baseball, who just recently got promoted. He's already making an impact for them. They were trying to find a way to keep his bat in the lineup when they have a really good center fielder. It's a Dane Raphael who can win a Gold Glove. They have a really good all-around right fielder in Wilyer Abreu. So, all right, we'll clear Duran and left, and that could be Anthony's spot. Well, now you've cleared DH potentially for Anthony or for a bunch of guys you could cycle through that spot. So they might not need to move Duran. They might decide, you know what, let's keep Duran and let's try to win this year. So now those are the names that could be out there at the deadline. We still don't know. I see Stearns being more interested in the guys with control. But if you need a piece, Suárez could be that piece. Now, the other guy to talk about is Jett Williams. And to me, Jett Williams is not the guy that you necessarily want to be your third baseman this year, because it's tough for a guy to come up from the minor leagues and make an impact. To me, Jett Williams seems like the break glass in case of emergency option. And I also want to spotlight that he is playing his way to a promotion right now. He's hitting 296 on the season, 400 on base, 526 slide. That's a 926 OPS. He has 6 home runs, 5 triples, 17 doubles, 18 stolen bases. He's walking at an elite 13.9% rate, only striking out 20.4% of the time. If you look at weighted runs created plus, his 171 WRC plus is second best in the entire Eastern League behind, who was it? Hitter for is it like Max Anderson? Hitter in the Tigers organization. I think it is Max Anderson. Let's see if I'm right. We'll go with Max Anderson. I'm 90% sure I'm right on that one. The crazy thing about Jett, let me see if I can pull up the recent stats. Jett Williams was hitting the head not that long ago, and he has been on an absolute heater ever since he got hit. So far this month, he's hitting 348, 464 on base, 717 slug. He got hit on the head on June 6th. Happy birthday, Mom. And since then, He went 2 for 4 his next game 2 days later with a couple RBIs. Then it was 1 for 4, then 2 for 3 game where he homered twice, his third game after getting hit in the head. 3 for 4, took an over, then 3 for 5 on Saturday, a 1 for 5 game on Sunday. He's just been unbelievable lately. He's driving in runs. He's hitting his doubles. He's doing his thing. He's just a really good player. He's a shortstop. He's playing primarily shortstop this year. Has played a little bit of center, 9 games there, 4 games at second base. Has not played third base in his professional career, but he's a shortstop that can figure it out. There is a world where I could see Jett Williams being an answer somewhere, whether that's third base, center field, theoretically second base, if you like him there more, similar to the Acuna McNeil situation. You flex McNeil and maybe McNeil is your starting center fielder come October. Who knows? But that's where the Mets are at this year. That's the options for third base. I don't think you're going to be calling on a Jacob Reimer, even though he could be your answer long term. Reimer has gotten off to a great start to his season in Brooklyn, but that's high A. So how long will the carousel spin at third base? We really don't know. Right now, if I had to make my prediction on who would start at third base in a playoff game, I would be flipping a coin between Baty and Vientos, honestly. But there is a potential trade option that is very intriguing. There is a guy in the minor leagues who's raking, who's at least pushing to get promoted to AAA, and Jett Williams, who theoretically could put himself into the conversation. And then there's the biggest wild card of all, a guy that is on the big league roster right now, a 6'4" switch hitter who posts incredible exit velocities, has a cannon of an arm, but has some rawness to his game, I would say. I think that's always been there, but especially if you're not playing baseball for a year. Mauricio does look a little bit raw out there, but then he'll put together in a bat where you see it and you go, oh, there's a guy that could be your third baseman. We'll see. But for this upcoming series, it is Mauricio that's going to be the guy. I'm going to talk Mets versus Braves to close out the show in just a minute. Today's episode is brought to you by Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had a service emergency, like a burst pipe. If the first plumber didn't answer, did you wait? No, you called the next one, and that's why having a reliable business line is so important. That's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system that helps you streamline and scale customer communication, all from an app on your phone or computer. Your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox. No more, who's handling this? And the AI agent handles after-hour calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss a customer again. OpenPhone is offering Locked On Mets listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnMLB. That's OpenPhone, OpenPhone.com/LockedOnMLB. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. If you're an everydayer that's always tuning into the show, make sure to become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service where you get updates from me anytime news breaks from the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime, take part in our Locked On Mets signed photo giveaways, and get a live graphic sent to your phone each day so you know who's in the starting lineup without ever having to go on social media. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find a link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. All right, Mets versus Braves begins tonight. This is a very important stretch of the season for the New York Mets. 10 games played against division rivals, 3 on the road against the Braves, 3 on the road this weekend against the Phillies, and then you come home to a 4-gamer against the Braves. For the Braves, they're looking at this as an opportunity to jumpstart their season because they've had a brutal year so far. They're 31-39, 7.5 games back in the wild card race, 13 games back in the division. Are they out of the division right now? Are we ready to proclaim the Atlanta Braves dead in the NL East on June 17th? I know that there are Mets fans that are cringing at the thought of me saying that. I'm cringing inside myself because it's like a horror movie. You can never kill the Braves. They always come back. They're always the slasher that's going to find their way back into the picture. And a lot of times they win. So, yeah, I'm still scared of the Braves, even though they're 8 games under 500. I'll admit it. You look at that lineup, and it doesn't make sense that they have this record. And you actually look at their expected win-loss, which factors in run differential, has them at 36 and 34. They should be a lot better than they are. Part of that is because their bullpen's been terrible. As a team, 22 save opportunities, and they've notched 10 saves as a team. It's pretty wild. Now, go through and look at who this team has been at home. They're actually pretty good, 19 and 15. On the road, 12 and 24. They've been a disaster. Their offense, 22nd in runs scored across Major League Baseball, 15th in home runs, 16th in OPS over the past 2 weeks, 17th in OPS, 14th in home runs, 18th in runs scored. So a little bit better, but still not a top offense. They have Matt Olson, who's been good, not great, 822 OPS. Marcell Ozuna, also good, not great, 810 OPS. Austin Riley and Sean Murphy both having OPSs in the high 700s. Not bad, but not as good as they can be, particularly Riley. You have Drake Baldwin, the rookie catcher, in 807 OPS, which is really impressive for a rookie for sure. I have to try to figure out how to get him playing time, how to get Murphy playing time when you have Ozuna locked in at the DH spot. That's why I don't know if I'd say expect, but I would definitely think that Sean Murphy could be moved at the deadline to some team. And then you have the bottom of the lineup where Ozzie Albies and Michael Harris have both been bad. And they still have their own carousel or revolving door at shortstop with not nearly as good of options as the Mets have at third base. And they still have some questions in the corner outfield. Granted, one question that they don't have is right field because Ronald Acuna Jr. has been a monster since coming off the injured list. He's hitting 390, 478 on base, 701 slug. It's 7 home runs, 21 games, a 1.179 OPS. And over his last 12 games, he's hitting 442. So Ronald Acuna Jr., that's going to be a tough matchup all series for sure. Now, on the pitching side of things, again, the bullpen has been the Achilles heel because they've struggled late in games. Overall, their bullpen ERA is not terrible. It's 17th in baseball. ERA in the 3.7s. Their rotation, very similar. 3.67 ERA, 11th in Major League Baseball. You look at the individual starters. Chris Sale has been great, 2.79 ERA. Spencer Schwellenbach, also great, 3.11 ERA. Grant Holmes, giving them, I think he had like a crazy strikeout performance recently, or his last start against the Rockies. The Rockies were striking out a lot in that series. They struck out 15 in a game that the Braves eventually lost 10-1. The Rockies were able to salvage a victory in that series. And that's what the Braves are holding on to right now. The last game they played, 10-1 loss at home. They also had a day off on Monday. Now, you look beyond those three in the rotation. Bryce Elder has been okay this year, 4.45 ERA. AJ Smith-Shawver was off to a great start to this season. He went down, I believe, with Tommy John. And then speaking of Tommy John, Spencer Strider's back. He's got a 4.35 ERA so far. Now, you look at this series, and it's a similar key that we've talked about in other series recently, which is good rotation, some good starting pitchers, not the best bullpen. So if it turns into a game of bullpens late, you think the Mets have a pretty good opportunity to win it. You want to try to work some of these good starting pitchers out of the games early. And the question is, will the Mets starting pitching hold up? I think that's a big concern right now, considering what we've watched lately and who's going to be pitching in this series. Now, I'm not concerned about the game tonight. David Peterson gets his chance to play stopper. He's going up against Spencer Schwellenbach, and Schwellenbach had a lot of success against the Mets. You remember his starts at the end of the season against the Mets were dynamite. 2 starts, his final 2 of the year for him, where he goes 7 innings each time, allows 1 run each time. He was unbelievable. He pitched that infamous game 161, and he was just so tough to hit. And then late in the game, the Mets were able to score when you had Lindor and Nimmo and all that magic that we saw as the Mets were able to outlast the Braves and win that first playoff spot ahead of them. I guess technically the tiebreaker ended up working out with the Braves who were ahead of them, but the Mets clinched first. David Peterson this year, though, has been a better pitcher than Spencer Schwellenbach. 2.49 ERA compared to Schwellenbach at 3.11. It's a great pitching matchup, but the onus is on Peterson here to really step up as the Mets de facto ace right now and get the job done. And if the Mets can win this first game, if they can avoid their first 4-game losing streak of the season and snap the skid, they're going to be sitting in a pretty good spot. Game 2, don't love their chances. Paul Blackburn going up against Chris Sale. Now, Chris Sale is right back to Cy Young form. Had a little bit of a tougher start to the season, but he's been great lately. And he looks to again be a potential all-star and a guy that's going to finish in the top 10, if not the top 5. If not, just be the Cy Young again. So that's going to be a tough matchup for the Mets. Blackburn, who knows what you're going to get. He did pitch well against the Dodgers in his one start this year. Hopefully we see a lot more of that. But he's got a couple of rougher, bullpen outings that are fresh on his mind. So I don't know how confident he's going to be. And he's pitching for his life. So I don't feel great about game 2. Game 3, Clay Holmes versus Spencer Strider. Now, just name recognition wise, Strider gives the Braves an edge. But this year, Clay Holmes has been awesome. We'll see if he's got a full pitch count this time, if he can go beyond 85 pitches. But even if he can't, I like Clay Holmes' ability to keep the Mets in the game through the first 5 innings against Spencer Strider. And then hopefully you have enough left in the tank in the bullpen to potentially win it. Strider is coming off his best start, granted, against the Rockies, but he struck out 13 in 6 scoreless innings, allowed only 3 hits and walked 1. Overall, when you look at Schwellenbach, Sale, Strider playing in Atlanta, this series feels like a trap. It doesn't feel like one that I'm going into with a ton of confidence, but also I believe in this Mets team. I believe in this lineup to score some runs. I believe in the bullpen, and I like who the Mets have on the mound tonight. So we'll see how this goes. You win game 1 of the series, you're sitting in a really good spot, and we'll see where things progress from there. The unfortunate thing, the Phillies are playing the Marlins, and they already took advantage in the first game of the series. They won 5-2 tonight. So now, looking at this division, the Mets are now clinging to a 2-game lead. And the Phillies still got 3 more games to play in Miami. So hopefully the Mets can at least take a game this series, if not win it. And maybe the Marlins can surprise us and grab one from the Phillies so that the Mets will have a lead when we get to that really exciting matchup over the weekend. But for now, got to worry about the team that's in front of you, and the Braves. While they haven't been great this year, it's the Atlanta Braves versus the Mets. These are always going to be wild games. Everyone's going to get up from it. A guy like Michael Harris, who has sucked all year, you're going to see a different version of Michael Harris for a game like this. You might see a different version of Ozzie Albies. And the fact that they will have their lineup that's healthy, where you're going to have Acuna, where you're going to have Olsen, where you're going to have Ozuna, where you're going to have Riley, Albies, Harris, either catcher, Murphy or Baldwin. There might be a couple holes, but this is going to be a Braves team that is not going to look like what their record would suggest. The Mets can beat anybody, though. And so I hope that the Mets, over the next 10 games, are going to beat up on this Braves team. And maybe 10 days from now, when it's, June 26th, I'll proclaim going into June 27th, the June 27th show, Locked On Mets. Maybe I will proclaim that the Braves are dead in the NL East. Right now, I would not suggest that. I still think there's an outside chance that the Braves will pull off a miracle run, similar to what the Mets did last year to make the playoffs, and somehow, some way, they'll get back into this mix and come back from down 13 games. It's extraordinarily unlikely. It's mathematically impossible. It's probably never happened before. And yet, it's the freaking Braves, man. So anyway, that's going to be all for today's show. Tomorrow's show, what else are we going to talk about? Game 1 of this series. Did David Peterson show up as the stopper? Did he lead the Mets to a victory? How did Soto, Alonso, and Lindor look? We'll go through it all. Appreciate all of you who tuned into the show today. As always, make sure you follow, you rate, you review wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider and be part of our texting service, find a link in the episode description or go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen or your first watch every day, not for your second watch. Head over to YouTube and check out the show that'll take you around all the action in Major League Baseball, Locked On MLB Game Night, with insight from all of our local experts. You can find Locked On MLB Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel, as well as the Locked On MLB podcast feed.